is day 43 of communication practice with ChatGPT. So, good evening, ChatGPT.
Good evening. How's it going?
It's not so good because I wasted my time today doing nonsense things and I wasn't mindful for what I did. And even I knew what I have to do, I am still not actually want to do it. And when I started to do it, even with the focused mind, after a short period of time, I always get distracted and turn myself into watching YouTube videos. So I want your guidance and your suggestions on how to get through that.
I get it. We've all been there. One thing that can help is setting small, clear goals for each chunk of time and taking short breaks to refresh your mind. Also, try to remove distractions like keeping your phone out of reach or using website blockers. If you find yourself drifting to YouTube, maybe you can schedule a bit of time for it as a reward after you complete a task. And remember to be kind to yourself. Building focus and mindfulness takes practice.
Absolutely. And I, in fact, tried blocking my websites, but still, some days I eventually have to reopen it for researching purpose. And from that moment on, I keep the website open. And and I don't, I mean, is there any practical ways to get used to this or to practice this? For example, I have tried exercise in the past for quite a long time, for about months, and after I removed my teeth, I was lazy and didn't get back to that. So one so my top manager said to me that um, consistency is consistency, and it's boring, it's hard, it's not the thing you want to do, but it's just like brushing your teeth when you wake up in the morning. Is the first thing you do and you don't have to think about it. That's why I stuck that habit of exercising before actually brushing my teeth, and with that I can do it like 40 days streak. And now I want to apply the my other habits, like practicing communication with you, or um, focusing on the job that I want to do. But is not reproducible, like exercise before brushing my teeth. Is not. I mean, I couldn't find any habits to stack uh, in terms of the convenience of the time during the day or something like that. So, any suggestions?
It sounds like you had a great system with your exercise routine. For other habits, you can try anchoring them to existing parts of your routine. For example, if you want to practice communication, you could tie it to something you do daily, like right after breakfast or before you start your main work tasks. You could also set a specific time each day, like a calendar reminder, to practice communication or focus on a specific task. Over time, these small, regular practices can become second nature, just like brushing your teeth. And if it's about focus, maybe create a mini ritual, like a short breathing exercise or a quick review of what you want to achieve before diving in.
Thank you. I actually did try to communication practice before actually doing the work in the day, and it works during the weekdays, but in the weekend I often stay up late and I often uh, chill myself out, and that doesn't help with communication practice before actually doing the work, because in weekend there is not actual work, um, actual company work. So that's one thing. And about the focus, yeah, maybe I should try breathing before doing anything silly.
That makes sense. Weekends can definitely throw off the routine since the structure is different. Maybe you could set a more relaxed version of your weekday routine for the weekends, like doing your communication practice after breakfast or before lunch, so it still feels consistent but not too rigid. And yeah, a quick breathing exercise or a mindfulness moment can really help set the tone before diving into anything.
Okay, can you help me with the meditation or the breathing exercise, so that I can anchor it into before doing any silly things like draws myself to watching YouTube videos or surfing the phone.
Of course, let's do a simple breathing exercise. Find a comfortable position and close your eyes if you feel comfortable. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold that breath for a count of 4. Then exhale slowly through your mouth for a count of 4. Repeat this a few times, focusing on the sensation of your breath. This can help calm your mind and anchor you before you start any activity.
Thank you. I am practicing that right now, and mm, I think it helps, and that's great. Mm, Thank you very much. And also, let's get back to the mock interview practice. So I'm having an interview, a technical interview with live coding about the ETL pipeline building, but it's quite strange to me that I am I am familiar with system design interview or a lead code interview or even SQL or data modeling interview, but interview with live coding in building ETL pipelines, I am not used to that, and I want you to give me some hints of how to deal with that and some more questions if possible.
Absolutely. For a live coding interview focused on ETL pipelines, you'll want to be clear on a few key aspects. First, be familiar with data extraction, transformation, and loading steps and how to implement them efficiently. Second, think about how you'd handle errors, logging, and monitoring in your pipeline. Third, consider performance aspects like how to handle large datasets and optimize transformations. We can run through some mock questions to help you get comfortable. Would you like to start with a general question on designing an ETL pipeline or something more specific?
I want something more specific.
Got it. Let's say you're asked to design an ETL pipeline that ingests data from a CSV file, transforms it by filtering out invalid records, and then loads it into a database. How would you structure your code to handle the extraction, transformation, and loading steps? And how would you ensure that the pipeline is efficient and robust, for example, by implementing logging and error handling? Feel free to talk through your thought process, and I'll give you feedback.
This is quite a good question. Um, so first, I'm gonna have to get the sizing of the source data files, uh, and a prediction to anticipate how the data would be at its peak time. So, for example, normally the data volume is about 10 gigabyte per day, and at its peak time, it can get to 1 terabyte per day. So, with that data sources, we you, we should use the distributed system like data processing like Spark to uh, to scale horizontally uh, to handle those volume of data. And with Spark, reading ETL is trivial. So we should design a pipeline to receive a um, so we can configure the job to point to the source location containing the file of that day. So we can put the source location and the run date. And so and we check if uh, if the park consume no data, it's essentially mean the data might be late, or there was some problem with the data, or the data is actually have no data at that day, and we want to log it into a log stream or even alert it to the email so that we know our pipeline is getting into some data issues, might be getting into some data issues. And also the data should be processed um, when loading into a data frame on the memory. We can apply transformation based on the business requirement logic, and after doing those, we can dump it into the database based on the JDBC connection. And about the data modeling of that data, we can dump it according to which type of table was it. Was it a fact table? So we can dump it like fact periodic or fact snapshot, fact append. Was it um, a dimension table? We can dump it according to SCD1 or SCD2, even SCD4. Uh, but still, Spark dumping data into the database or data warehouse is um, kind of traditional, classical, and we essentially have to build the um, the transformation on our own. If we dump Spark into something like a lakehouse architecture like Delta Lake, we can leverage the Spark SQL to do some insert into or merge into, so that uh, the data is also handled properly.
That's a solid approach. You covered key aspects like scaling with Spark, handling data volume variability, implementing logging and alerts, and choosing the right data modeling strategy. When you're live coding, it's also helpful to articulate your thought process as you go so the interviewer understands your reasoning. If you want, we can do a practice run with a specific scenario to simulate that environment.
Okay.
Great. Let's say you're asked to build an ETL pipeline that ingests daily transaction logs from a retail system. The data arrives in JSON files and needs to be transformed and loaded into a data warehouse. How would you design and implement this pipeline? Feel free to walk through each step, from extraction and transformation to loading and error handling.
Okay, first it based on the requirement and the SLA. For example, if we just have to do the periodic ETL pipeline like T minus one batch data, we can um, leverage a cron job with Spark, cron job for the orchestration, and Spark job to actually point to the JSON file location and read from one specific data, one specific data file folder. And if there and if the source system doesn't provide data files into an order, into a folder, we might have to handle that checkpoint logic at our at ourselves. Like after reading some data, we might log the last file that we processed. So from the next time, we know which file we processed, so that we get the chunk of data that we need to process. And since it's a log file, essentially it should be incremental. So with incremental data, we can actually um, dump that data into data warehouse incrementally. And what I'm saying is we can do the insert override to that data by day. So um, if we run that data multiple times a day, the data is not duplicated, and the data is idempotent even if we do the backfill. So HR, uh, we so to summarize from the extraction part, read from the data from the date location, and if there was not that, we might have to have a database to store the last data that we have processed. Then read from that first, read from the location to get the chunk of data that we need to process. And for the transformation is actually based on the data model that we want. And for log file, usually fact table, so we can apply the fact periodic or fact snapshot or fact append. And for the load part, we can load that to a date in the table using insert override. So that's basically how it is. Right?
Great job summarizing that. You clearly laid out the steps from understanding the data volume and using Spark for processing to implementing checkpoint logic and ensuring idempotency. This approach not only ensures data consistency, but also handles incremental loads efficiently. It's a strong framework for any ETL pipeline scenario. If you'd like, we can dive into a mock scenario or explore some specific challenges you might face during the interview.
Yeah, I'm ready for some challenges that I might face during the interview.
Awesome. Let's say you're asked to design an ETL pipeline that processes daily transaction logs from multiple sources into a data warehouse. How would you handle data validation and ensure data quality before loading it into the warehouse? Feel free to walk through your thought process and any checks or tools you'd use.
Normally, we would have to do the unit test and system integration test and user acceptance test for the for one new job before deploying it on the product environment. But it's a manual testing, so it might not be efficient. To ensure the data quality, first is every job uh, should have a unit test so that it is uh, valid through the creation and even the updates of that job. And when the job is deployed on the environment, we can also apply the data quality monitoring to check if the data is qualified uh, with some aspect. So yeah, that's how we can ensure the data validation for that ETL pipelines.
That's a good approach. Incorporating unit tests ensures each component of your ETL pipeline works correctly before deployment. System integration and user acceptance testing help validate the pipeline end to end. Additionally, implementing data quality monitoring allows you to catch issues in real time and ensure.
I got it. Thank you, ChatGPT. Have a good night.